Westfield Memorial Hospital provides high-quality health care to residents of Western New York, offering patients the most sophisticated medical advancements while keeping the ease and familiarity of a community hospital. Support for Chautauqua Sunrise has been provided by WRFA 107.9 FM, Jamestown's public radio station, streaming online 24/7 at WRFALP.com. Low power to the people. Bella Salon and Day Spa, located at 41 West Main Street in Northeast Pennsylvania, proudly supports Chautauqua Sunrise and its volunteers. More information at bellasalonanddayspa.net. Funding is provided by a grant from New York State Senator Catherine M. Young, representing Western New York's 57th District with a local office in Olean. Chautauqua Sunrise is made possible by a grant from Fredonia Place, a continuing care retirement community providing dignity in a modern luxury environment. From the Access Channel 5 studios in Mayville, it's Chautauqua Sunrise. Chautauqua Sunrise is hosted by Doc Hamels and supported by the award-winning volunteers at Access Channel 5. Continuing the traditions of Senior Report, we are here to share local news, colorful interviews, and events of interest to everyone. Chautauqua Sunrise is broadcast live Saturday mornings each week, countywide, from 9 to 10 a.m. Join us by calling in live, emailing us, or checking out our social media. And now, from the Channel 5 studios, it's Chautauqua Sunrise.
Good morning. Welcome to Chautauqua Sunrise. It's a bit unnerving for me a little bit this morning. It's been a while since I've guest hosted, but Doc Hamels is out. He's on vacation somewhere down in sunny Florida. I believe he's going to be doing a cruise. So he may call in or not, but anyhow, grab a cup of coffee, sit back. We're here with a wine expert this morning, and we're going to talk about wine. So you can email us, you can call us at 753-5225. If you can't remember all the numbers, just remember Jack. And let's get to some announcements here. Starting off with the Soup and a Song tonight at the St. Susan Center. Our good friend Carrie Gifford is going to be hosting that tonight. There's 5 specialty soups with breads, desserts, and beverages. Music by Steel Rails. And tickets are $10 at the door. That camera's off. Anyhow, then we go on to the Ripley Birthday Pasta Dinner. It's celebrating Ripley's 200th birthday. So there will be a dinner at the RCS Cafeteria. I'm not sure what that is. That might be the high school or something. March 2nd, 4:30 to 7 p.m. Dinner is spaghetti with marinara and meatballs or Alfredo with chicken. Adults are not too much, $6. Children 4 to 12, $5. Under 3 eat free. And there's family pass of $20. There's no reservations required, but they do appreciate that you do call in. For more information, contact number is 410-6695. And the next one is the Peak and Peak Resort Annual Chicken Wing Cook-Off, Saturday, March 5th. That's coming up next week from noon to 5 p.m. Benefits the rural center of Chautauqua County, which is located right there in Sherman. Awards are handed out at 6. Then sounds like a good time. there'll be lots of local restaurants and everything else around. So that sounds like a good time. I bet you the hot wings are probably about really hot. So anyhow, join us for the Infinity Visual and Performing Arts for the second annual Local Artist Showcase. The Local Artist Showcase will be held at the Infinity Arts Cafe on Saturday, March 12th from 12 p.m. to 5 p.m. and features the work of over 20 local artists, fun activities for the entire family, and an art auction featuring autographed items by members of the Beach Boys, Bella Flack, Abigail Washburn, Blake Shelton, and more. So, and then another activity that the Infinity Visual and Performing Arts has going on is a number of creative classes and workshop opportunities beginning in March. Classes include art of painting, creative movement, theater exploration, Infinity Glee, and it looks like it has classes all week. There's prices on the poster. For beginners, Infinity Film Crew, Hip Hop Dance, Advanced Music Theory, Find Your Drum Voice, and probably 8 or 10 other different things. Infinity will be offering a youth songwriting workshop ages 13 to 18, hosted by Infinity Aluma. Haley Restivo, or Addison Moon, I guess she uses a stage name. For more information about classes, pricing, or to register, please call 716-664-0991 or stop to the Infinity Center at 301 East 2nd Street in Jamestown. Online reservation is also available at infinityperformingarts.org/register. So, sounds like there's lots of stuff going on for kids, and this is really a mentoring program that has been in place for a number of years, and I've heard nothing but good things about this. So, they will also be hosting on March 3rd an installment of Pulse Poetry Slam at 6 p.m. at the Infinity Arts Cafe. That's on March 3rd. This event is free, family-friendly, and open to the public. Audience members and performers of all ages are welcome. Performance poetry is an excellent way to express creativity while practicing performance and public speaking. I think I need some help. I understand what Doc says. First thing in the morning, the mouth does not get in gear very well. Okay, the last item that I have is the Infinity Visual and Performing Arts Incorporated. We'll be holding a vocal showcase. The vocal showcase will feature many talented vocal lesson students as well as Infinity Voices Choir. This event is free and open to the public. That's at the Infinity Arts Cafe on Friday, March 4th at 7 p.m. So, we have a special guest this morning for a couple of minutes. George Roth. He's going to be talking about what he's going to be doing here. So, good morning, George.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm very fine, thank you very much.
So you've got a little program that you're doing on your own here?
Mm-hmm. You see, our program is Film of the Century of the Week. It's a new thing that Channel 5 is doing under my suggestion. Basically, every week we air a new program where we present a film or a short film that's located within the public domain, which means it's absolutely free to show, distribute, or basically show to the public at no cost to the broadcasting station or to me or to the staff here at Channel 5. Now, normally people think that public domain films are just really lowbrow, small-budgeted things that are forgotten. In some cases that is true, but in other cases it's not. We found a really, really astounding astounding array of films here. We've got The Stranger with Orson Welles, the post-war thing about the war criminals. We also have McClintock with John Wayne. That's on AMC and TCM all the time. We've got 4 Three Stooges shorts, and actually we have a double feature of the Three Stooges that is our debut show today, Saturday, at 4 p.m., and then again at 10 p.m. So that's sort of going to be our testing the waters thing, see if people like that. And then we go on with the list of films. I think there's 13 in all in chronological order.
Oh, nice.
And if that's successful, then I'm hoping to tape another season as well.
Okay. So you're just doing just a short season that's going to run through into the early summer then? Yeah,
I think so. And they can be I would assume that they would be rebroadcast in syndication at any point in time as well.
Yeah.
I signed away the voucher for that. That's absolutely fine. I want that to happen. That'd be great.
Yeah. Okay. Was there anything else that you had going on, or?
Well, just one more thing to all you people out there watching Channel 5 on Chautauqua Sunrise this morning. If you fancy watching old movies and seeing a sort of Turner Classic Movies or Masterpiece Theater on PBS-style broadcasting of them, tune in to Channel 5 tonight at 4 p.m. and then again at 10 p.m. if you're unable to make that, if you're at work or something like that. And if you're inclined on social media, go on to Facebook and give Film of the Century of the Week your like. We'll be posting all our episodes, updates, and schedules there as they come in.
All right. Sounds good. All right. Thank you, George.
Thank you.
Hope that's a good success for you. All right. We'll take a minute now and have a PSA, and then I'll introduce you to our other guest, Joe Town, and we'll be off and running.
You know what, guys? There's a lot of tree branches and dry brush over here. We should probably move the bonfire over there.
I'm guessing Smokey liked that idea.
And welcome back. Again, I don't know if I introduced myself. I'm Jeff Zook. I'm guest hosting for Doc Hamels this week. He's out on vacation, and well-deserved as it is. Our guest this morning is a local boy. He's been around. I've worked with him for a couple of years. His name is Joe Town. Good morning, Joe. Welcome to the show.
Good morning, Jeff. Thanks for having me on.
It's been a pleasure. I've been looking forward to this. As you can see, there's some wine and some different stuff around here. So Joe is basically the only true wine expert that I'm aware of in the area.
Excellent, excellent. Well, thanks again, Jeff, and thanks to Access Channel 5 for having me on this morning. It's always great to see all the local fun things that are going on this week for the area and for all the kids. So that's exciting. But yes, I'm the only certified sommelier in Chautauqua County that I'm aware of, and there are a couple in Erie County, Niagara County, but it's a great guild to be a part of.
Oh, it's actually something that. Okay, before we get into that a little bit, tell us a little more about yourself. You know, where you grew up. You know, where you went to school. You know, what drives you.
Excellent. I started off my young adulthood in the Jamestown area. I went to Frewsburg Central School from 6th grade until graduation. That was a great experience. And then after that, I went to Niagara University, where I attained my bachelor's degree. While there, I studied hotel and restaurant management, and I minored in a couple of other fun things. But one of the greatest experiences I had was the ability to study abroad overseas for a semester, where I actually got to put a lot of my love for wine to great practice by going to the source.
Where'd you go? Where'd you study?
That's a great question. I studied in Dublin, Ireland. I drank more wine than I studied, but I studied in Dublin, Ireland, where I had a couple of wines, but they were more of a beer country than they are a wine country, and whiskey, of course. And then I went to Rome, Italy for 5 weeks, and then I was in Paris, France for 5 weeks, and I took a quick vacation to Spain for spring break.
Nice. So where did this interest in wine first come from? I know I've talked with you about this over time, and it's like this is really being what'd you call it, sommelier?
Sommelier, that's right. Yeah.
Sommelier, or is quite an intense study, and you said it was a guild, so apparently this has been around for a long, long time.
It has. That's a great question. So to answer the first part of that question, I would have to go back to when I was a younger guy working at Pace's Pizza with one of my mentors and good friends, Dino Pace. Dino Pace is 88 years old now, but he was born in just outside of Rome, Italy, and he has a little pizzeria on West 3rd Street. If you haven't been there, I'd recommend going there. It's the best pizza in the world. I tried all the other pizzas I could find in Italy, and they don't even compare. So it's a great pizza pie. And he taught me a lot of things about life and about the industry. More importantly, he shared his passion with wine with me.
Oh,
and got me started kind of talking about it and getting to know it and tasting a little bit. It's exciting stuff. So.
Okay.
I suppose I should tell you about the guild.
Yes.
So the
yes,
sommelier
yes.
is a fancy French word. Just basically means that it's someone that works in the beverage industry, runs a cellar program, which means that when the wine comes in, they can inventory it, order it, store it, properly serve it, and then, of course, be the ambassador to the table as to where that wine came from, the story behind it, its tasting notes, why it would pair with whatever dish that guest would order. And it's not just wine. It's actually spirits, the world of spirits as well, and beer. So a lot of fun stuff there. Now the Guild of Sommeliers is run by a gentleman named Jeff Kruth, Master Sommelier. In America, there's only 174-ish Master Sommeliers. 24 of them are women, and the rest are men. So we're looking forward to getting some more ladies involved in the Americas. But it wasn't really made popular until late 1970s when a gentleman by the name of Fred Dame, who's now a Master Sommelier, went across seas to the UK and passed all 3 components of the MS test in the first try, and then he came back and was really instrumental in developing a program here in America for Americans to enter into the world of wine as well.
That's pretty impressive because I know some of the studying and stuff that you've been through, and it's pretty intense. So to pass all 3 levels at the same time, or in order to get his master's, is pretty impressive. So, okay, what level are you at?
I'm a level 2. So there's 4 levels. There's an introductory course, which was in its own right challenging, and then there's the certified sommelier, which is level 2. So now you can actually call yourself a sommelier at that point. 3rd is advanced. Advanced is by invitation only, so I have an application out. I do have to wait a year until I become qualified for that. And then level 4 is the master sommelier. So all 4 of them host their own set of challenges, and as you go on, the more intensive it gets.
Okay. Yeah. Now, as a sommelier, what do you have to show that you have a knowledge of? Product, how it's grown, what it is, where it comes from. Is that all included in that?
That's a great question, Jeff. It's all included in that. So there's 3 components to the test. The first component is going to be the theory examination. The second component is going to be the tasting, the blind tasting. And the 3rd component is going to be the service element. So in the first component for theory, they're going to test you on everything from how the wine is grown, where it comes from, major producers, all classical varietal growing regions in the world, climates, geography, history, all sorts of fun stuff. So, and the second component is going to be the blind tasting. So what they'll do is they'll set wines in front of you. In level 2, it was 1 wine that was red and 1 wine that was white, and you had 10 minutes to use a deductive tasting grid to work through the wine, and at the end of it you had to say what the wine was, where it came from, the vintage, all sorts of fun stuff. So it can get pretty intense because there's a lot of wine in the world and they all taste different. So to be able to nail it down to a specific growing region and a specific varietal takes a lot of work. And the 3rd component is the service component. So you do have a table full of master somms, which is pretty intense because these guys are, they have the PhD, so to speak, in the wine world, and they've been around and they've tasted wines that we've only just heard of and are no longer available. And here they are, sitting around a table, and you have to go around and talk about it, and they drill you with questions the whole time as you're trying to nervously open your bottle while staying calm. And so it got pretty interesting, but it was, you just have to take it in stride and to know that at the end of the day, it's...
So while you're pouring this wine for these master sommeliers, they're asking you questions about the wine, what you would pair it with, which we'll get to in a few minutes. where it was, all this kind of stuff that you really should know for a table.
Absolutely.
If somebody comes in and says, I'm having steak tonight. I don't know what kind of steak or anything else. There's hundreds of ways to fix steaks in a restaurant. What kind of wine would go with this with a good steak? A red wine, a white wine, dry, a sweet. Any of that kind of stuff.
Absolutely, absolutely. And a lot of the questions were hypothetical. So here we are at this table, and you'd walk up, and they would say, I'm here with my wife and our 2 business associates, and it might just be one master som, and he's making up this situation. You have to memorize this as he's talking, because it makes a difference in who you would pour first and how you would talk about things. And then he would say what he was having for dinner and what his wife was having, any recommendations. He would ask you questions about a cocktail before dinner, different spirits that could be drank and so on and so forth. But yes, then we get into a lot of pairing questions, because at the end of the day, that's what we do as sommeliers on the floor, is we want to pair that dish that you're having with the best wine we can, so you can have the ultimate best experience.
Okay, so what is the advantage of having a som on staff?
The advantage of having a som on staff would be to run a proper beverage program. It's always important for a restaurant that has a great culinary program to be able to match that on the beverage side. And gone are the days, I believe, where you can just get in 5 or 6 different wines and just assume that they would go with everything. But to really tailor a program to the menu and to have wines that nobody else has. And for example, at Andriacco's restaurant down the road in Mayville here, they have a great wine program we built over the past 3 years. And I'd say it's probably the most extensive wine program in the Mayville, Chautauqua area. And we owe a lot of that to the great community that wants to know more about it. The Chautauquans, in addition, that want to know more about it, that said, hey, I like Italian wine, what do you have here? And be able to walk them through that journey. And then now at Moonbrook Country Club, where I'm the club manager and sommelier, it's a lot of fun to build a wine program from the bottom up and to be able to train the staff on it and educate them, and daily wine trainings, and to be able to get the community excited about coming to Moonbrook to try all the great wines.
So as a som, you're basically an educator.
That's exactly right. An educator, a teacher, and I always call it an ambassador. Much like someone would be an ambassador of a country to another country, we're the ambassador of the world of wines and the restaurant to the guest table side.
And it's a pretty extensive world. The world of wines is, huge.
Yes, it is.
So, okay. Let's start with some of the local wines that we have. The local area here, we live in a great area. I believe it's Concord's, and there's a couple 100,000 acres of grapes along the lakeshore, stretching from northeast to almost into Buffalo. So
that's exactly right, yeah. So the Lake Erie wine country, in particular Chautauqua Lake Erie wine country, is that general growing region is the largest growing region of grapes out east of the Rocky Mountains. So it's a huge growing region. The Finger Lakes is catching up, but as of now, as I just checked a couple days ago, it's still the largest east of the Rockies, and it stretches, as you mentioned, from Harbor Creek all the way to Silver Creek. It's about 50 miles of prime, fertile, growing terroir, as they say, on Lake Erie, which is really full of some great things that then makes wine really nice around here. As you mentioned also, the Concord grape varietal. If you've done any wine pairings here locally, you'll notice that there's a lot of local native grape varietals, Tremonette, Concord, some Niagaras, things like this. But you also find some European varietals as well, like Riesling, which of course comes from Germany, Austria, and parts of France. And it grows other places now, like Australia and so on. But Riesling grows really well here because of the climate, because of the soil types. And there's also some European varietals that that are a challenge here, that winemakers are being very creative in trying to establish, like Cabernet or Merlot or Syrah or Malbec or some of these European varietals that, because of the climate, it poses a great challenge to grow those here. So.
Okay, what's the challenge with the climate? Too cool, too damp?
Absolutely. Well, unfortunately, the growing season isn't warm enough, long enough. It's definitely very moist, but their winters just get so cold that a lot of times a European varietal can't withstand those temperature changes. Riesling does very well here. All native vines do very well here because of over time they've evolved to do well. But yeah, definitely the climate for sure.
Okay. There's this big area along the shore of Lake Erie. You mentioned the Finger Lakes. Is there any other eastern areas that they produce wines from?
Absolutely, yes there are. In the northeast area of North America, you will find there's a couple of key growing regions. You have the Ontario, Niagara Basin, kind of into Canada. They're growing really great wines up in Canada right now. Definitely ice wine, which we'll get into later. They grow really, really good ice wine up there. Tremendous ice wine. And we also have the Finger Lakes region, which is in the center of the state, Cayuga, all these different places. There's actually an MS, Christopher Bates, who was in Finger Lakes. If you ever want to talk to a master sommelier who's 2 levels above me, he's out there doing great things. And then east of that, we have Long Island Sound, and they grow really great juice out on Long Island as well. But every place is starting to grow their own, make a name for themselves, so to speak. There's wineries all over the Niagara region, in Erie County, Chautauqua County. But the major growing regions and the ones that are on the world map are, of course, the Chautauqua, Lake Erie, and Ontario and Niagara, and then Finger Lakes and Long Island.
Okay. So it really doesn't extend very far into the south or anything like that, like down into Georgia or someplace like that. You just don't grow wine there.
Well, they grow wine there, and you'll hear about it in country songs. If you're listening to those, the guys are always talking about opening up a bottle of wine in the back of their truck, and because there's wine everywhere, and it's different varietals. It's certainly sweeter. The more as you go south, but generally speaking, you have California, Washington, and Oregon, growing region, and then you have the east, and they're doing some tremendous things with Texas and Idaho right now, which are kind of
Idaho.
Interesting, right?
Yeah, that's interesting.
It's made out of grapes and not potatoes.
Yeah, because I was just going to say, all you ever hear about is potatoes from Idaho.
Absolutely.
So yeah, Idaho's a pretty dry climate, so I'm sure that's going to produce taste all on its own, a unique taste.
It's definitely unique. I had a late harvest Riesling from Idaho, and it was pretty cool. So. Yeah, but
how'd that compare with some of your other Rieslings, or it just?
It just has to do with where it was grown and the temperatures grown in. But because it was late harvest, it was a touch sweeter, which is kind of nice. Late harvest means that they wait longer for the grapes to be picked on vine. So as the grape sits on the vine, it begins to shrink and dehydrate. So as it dehydrates, it concentrates the residual sugar within the grape. It also concentrates the alcohol. Because that's what turns into alcohol when you apply yeast. Exactly right.
The sugar.
But that residual sugar, which is the sugar left over after fermentation, so after the sugar turns to alcohol, is still present. So it's a sweeter Riesling, which is kind of nice. But yeah.
So what you mentioned California, Oregon, and Washington.
Absolutely.
What kinds of grapes do they grow there? Anything similar to what we grow here, or are they doing more of the Rieslings that take a little bit milder climate?
That's a great question. California is very exciting, and the whole western coast is very exciting because they can grow almost anything there. I've seen it all, and I think Washington and Oregon. Washington has established a name for itself, but just recently Oregon, Willamette Valley, for their Pinot Noirs, a Burgundy-style Pinot Noir, very peppery, very fruit-forward, really crisp, really nice Pinot Noir. It's my second favorite Pinot Noir growing region in the world. But California having 107 different AVAs, it's an American viticultural area, so it's a defined area with California wine laws saying that this is a growing region for grapes, and it's very defined. There's 107 of those in California. So California is, as you know, is many miles from north to south, and it's got a lot of different climates within the state. And so it grows a lot of different kinds of grapes, but most notably is going to be Napa Valley, of course, Sonoma County, and they grow Cabernet, Chardonnay is probably two of their biggest ones. Pinot Noir, made famous by the documentary Sideways and for the health benefits, but Cabernet is the king of California.
Okay. Now, how many of the grapes that are growing in the United States are native to the United States now? I'm sure they imported a bunch of them.
Yes, they did. There's actually a good story to that. And to answer your question, there's a handful of native grapes, and most of the grapes that we drink now are all Vinus vinifera, which is vinifera is a type of vine that's grown in Europe, so it originates in Europe. And what happens is when these vine-eating diseases like phylloxera and
Could you explain that a little bit more?
Of course. Phylloxera is going to be, it's a little bug that it eats the vine, and so the vine actually the grapes don't grow, and it just destroys vineyards, and it can completely decimate an entire farm.
And it just like girdles vine or whatever, it just chews it up.
It just won't grow, and you can tell when there's a phylloxera outbreak in Europe. It's happened countless times, and it's scary because it could literally take out an entire growing region, and these are farmers' lives, and these are farmers' income, and there's only, each growing region has such a unique flavor and such a unique following that if that were to be destroyed, it couldn't be replicated. So the cool thing about native vines is when this happened, you can actually graft a lot of the vines in Bordeaux and so on and so forth are actually native vines of North America that were taken to Europe post-phylloxera because they were immune to phylloxera. And they grafted on vinifera onto the bottom of the native American vine. So, yeah.
Okay, so they're actually, some of them are actually hybrids, but
That's exactly right, yeah.
okay. You've gone and mentioned some stuff in Europe and that kind of stuff. What kind, do they grow anything really different than what we do here in the United States, or can you talk a little bit about what they do grow?
Sure, absolutely. We grow a lot of the same things here in the United States as they do in Europe, because a lot of Europeans came to the United States for opportunity, and they brought with them their wine. The difference is how they taste, how they look, and they call that Old World versus New World. So it's the same varietal, and to break down what varietal means, varietal is or variety is the type of grape. So Chardonnay, Cabernet, Malbec, these are all varietals. Vintage would be the year that it was harvested. But the Old World versus the New World is America, Australia, places like this, and the Old World is European. So if you think about it like coming over from the Old World to the New World. Yeah. So it could be the exact same varietal and taste 100% different, and in fact it does.
What causes that?
Definitely the terroir. Terroir is the earth it's grown in, and the earth gives back. Mother Earth gives back so much to the vine, which enhances the taste of the grapes so much that it's uniquely different.
So something grown in sandy soil, if you could grow it there,
yeah, sure,
tastes different than something grown in gravel soil.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you'll find places like Graves, which is in Bordeaux, that has very gravelly soil, will grow a Malbec or a Cabernet or Cab Franc or a Merlot so much differently than if it was grown in South America.
You're alluding to the fact that wine is no longer European or American. It is now Australian, South American, wherever you want to grow it. I bet you they even have some coming in from Russia.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So, what do they grow in Australia? To me, that's just a big
dead island.
Well, I'm not. We're gonna apologize for the slur to Australia, but a lot of what you see from Australia is it's a desert country.
Yeah.
It fits. It's right in that space on the earth south of the equator where it's very dry.
Yes, it is. Which is unique and also very advantageous for a lot of different varietals, because certain varietals do really well in an arid climate. It starves the vine, and the vine grows deeper if it doesn't have a lot of irrigation. The vine grows deeper and it concentrates the flavor. So they might produce less bunches of grapes
per vine,
but the bunches they do create are so intense and so robust. So it's
sweeter,
it's very unique. It depends what varietal, but generally higher in alcohol and generally a drier wine, like a Cabernet or a Sangiovese.
Okay.
But yes, as you mentioned, the wine is now international, and I think one of the things that draws me to it is you could walk into a wine shop or a restaurant, and when I open a wine list, I literally take a trip around the world for a moment as I'm reading. You can look around, and all the different bottles on the walls come from different regions of the world, and in one spot you could see and you could read in different languages and try things that are unique to that region and travel the entire world in just a couple of minutes. So it's really cool.
I know when you were building the wine list down at Andriacio's, we discovered one from South Africa.
That's right, yeah.
That was really, really good.
Yes. Yep.
So it's like you said, it's pretty much international. What else do they grow in, in South Africa, Australia, South America?
Sure.
Basically the same thing, but just through all the different types of ground and the earth that they grow in and the climate, whether it's wet or dry or whatever. This all creates their own little
microclimate,
and provides a different taste for each bottle of wine.
Yes, it does. The Southern Hemisphere is very unique. I think that culture and history has a lot to do with what grows in a certain location and why it grows there, and so on. A great example of that would be Riesling during the World War II region, when France and Germany kind of shared Alsace and Lorraine and so on. So it all depends on who's in control at the time. If you want to see where the Roman Empire went, look to where they took the vines. The vines are still there. Some of the architecture is still there. But in the Southern Hemisphere, South Africa, you mentioned, there's a great version of Chardonnay that they make there that's steel barrel. So it doesn't have any oak on it whatsoever. So as they ferment it in steel barrels, not in oak barrels. So you get to really taste the authentic juice of the Chardonnay, and you're not really hit hard with that oak, those baking spices, the butteriness of it. It's crisp, it's light. South Africa is unique in the sense that it has some of the oldest vines on earth because it was so isolated, before apartheid and so on. And now Australia has old vines as well, very old vines, because again it was isolated, so it didn't really have the threat of phylloxera as many times or as often as Europe and other places where people traveled back and forth often. McLaren Vale is a region in Australia, Barossa Valley. All these places, they grow Riesling, Pinot Noir, Cabernet, the old, of course, Australia's most famous Shiraz, which is their version of Syrah. It's just a great marketing campaign. One of the most famous winemakers in Australia is Penfolds. You can find Penfolds in many wine stores, and their master som is Dylan Proctor. Does a great job down there. They make great juice, great wines.
Okay. I got a couple questions.
Sure.
Is there genetically modified grapes that are used in wines and spirits? There's a big thing going around about GMOs and all kinds of stuff, and it's just is any of that used in wine, the grapes growing, or any clue?
Sure. Well, the scary thing is it's used everywhere. Because in essence, the whole reason of it was to create something to genetically modify it to be better, to grow more bunches per vine. In the food world to create a disease resistance, absolutely right. But there are a lot of great wineries right now that are going back to the way of doing things before this became a thing. Organic wines, sustainable farming methods, and it'll say it right on the bottle. This wine was grown using sustainable farming methods. This wine was used without pesticides. This was harvested in a sustainable way, so picked by hand, instead of using a gasoline-powered machine to pick it.
Come October, you can go drive down along the lakeshore and you see these machines out there with these big fingers just vibrating the whole thing, and to me that just doesn't seem like it does the vine or the vine itself any good. It's just like shake me up, and I'm dizzy for a day or two.
Absolutely. And I think the reason why they do that is because, as funny as it sounds, when it comes time to harvest, everything matters. I mean, down to the minute, really. I mean, the winemakers will go out into the vineyard and they'll pick a couple grapes from different bunches and taste them right there and say, not yet. And then the next day they taste it, not yet. And at 7 in the morning they might say not yet, but at 8 o'clock they might say now. We have to pick them now, before noon, So sometimes, from especially mass production, they want to send those machines out to grab as many as possible. But when possible, the really good wineries, the really great wines, really the wines that are the most expensive, and that's simply not because they're any necessarily better, but it's the cost of production. That's where the price comes from. They pick them by hand because they want to be gentle with the grape, because once the skin breaks, the natural yeast in the air begin fermentation. So you definitely don't want to put grapes in very large bins because they'll crush each other. So you want to put them in small bins, and if you pick them by hand and sort them by hand, you're going to get rid of the little grapes that don't ripe as fast as the other ones in the bunch. Get those out of there, and you have a more consistent and fluid taste in the wine.
Okay, we've talked a lot about wines. How do you go about pairing food and wines together? I know they're sweet, dry, semi-sweet, reds, whites, all kinds of stuff. So what's it take to match or pair your wine with your food?
That exact question is why we have jobs, because every vintage tastes different. I mean, you could have a Chardonnay from the same winemaker that in 2007, 2008, 2009, those 3 years taste completely different, and those 3 years would go with 3 different dishes. And so it's amazing the variety you could have, but general wine pairing rules are, and I think things are changing. I know they are out west, where we're actually developing a menu around the wine versus pairing the wine to the menu, which is pretty cool. But you want to take the chemistry of the food. You know, what is it? Is it spicy? Is it sweet? What are the sauces that go with it? You know, what ingredients they use in it? And then you want to pair that up with the chemistry of the wine. So when you have a really spicy food, you want to avoid wines with high alcohol, because they won't go together. So you want to kind of cool down the spice with a cooler wine. So residual sugar, a Riesling goes really great with spicy food, stuff like that. So there's a lot of general like wine pairing techniques that you can use. Of course, we've all heard of the red meat, red sauce, red wine, poultry, fish, white wine. Those are general wine pairing techniques, but they're not necessarily always true. I've had, you know, great white wine with dishes that you would normally pair with red wine, and I've had.
So you would, so for say you were having like a whitefish for dinner. I was having like salmon or something. That would be two different kinds of wine that would go with that. So could you explain a little bit about what that would be?
Sure. So if you have two different the fish itself has many components. The flakiness, you know, I guess you call it the brine or the saltiness of the fish. That has a big effect too. And then most importantly, again, is what do you do with the fish? Do you just bake it in a white wine lemon sauce, or do you top it with, you know, a mango chutney that really throws off the flavor composition? But generally with fish, you could pair things like Chardonnay, Pinot Grigio. My favorite seafood wine in the world is Albarino. Albarino comes from northwest Spain, Rías Baixas region. Very acidic, very citrusy, very kind of fruit forward, and has a good backbone to it. So it holds up to
so it cuts that fish.
Cuts it right down.
Cuts that fish flavor, so you can actually get a fresh taste of fish.
Absolutely.
The next time you take a bite of fish after you sip the wine.
That's exactly right, yeah. A little taste of Spain with every sip.
Yeah, that's one thing we didn't mention, the great Italian wines and the Spanish wines. One's here. One's here. Can we do a wine? Can we do a tasting?
Yeah, of course we can. But first I gotta tell you a little bit about it.
Oh, okay.
So this is Brunello di Montalcino. This is my favorite wine in the world. If I get that question a lot, Joe, what is your favorite wine? And though there's many out there that still blow my mind, this particular wine happens to be my favorite. It's made from Sangiovese. Sangiovese is the #1 grape grown all around Italy. But the way they grow it in Montalcino, they call it Brunello di Montalcino. Montalcino is the area they grow it in. Is a kind of a hybrid of the normal Sangiovese. It's called Sangiovese Grosso, so a little bit larger, a little more robust flavor. They age this for quite a long time. It has high alcohol, about 15%. And it just has great tasting notes like tart cherry, a little bit of leather, funny enough, tobacco, a little, you know, so there's some interesting tasting notes there. Not, of course, these tasting notes aren't really part of the grape. It's just the esters and the alcohols and the different, chemical breakdowns that the wine gives off during its fermentation. So, so normally, you know, of course, it's just a grape.
And this is all contained inside these barrels or casks or whatever. Yeah. And after how long? 6 months, a year, 2 years, 3 years,
Definitely
5 years?
A couple of years from Brunello di Montalcino. And there's different winemakers use different techniques. Some use a very small, like barrique, which is a very, a smaller oak barrel. And what that does is it imparts a more oaky sensation to the wine because more of the surface area touches the oak. Okay. And then they also use very large, like Hungarian casks, where they just give you a little bit of oak. Because less of the surface area. So,
okay.
So there's all sorts of fun ways to do it, but this one's going to be aged for a couple of years. So I guess we can just open it up and try it if you'd like.
All right. Phone call. Okay. All right. Before we get into that,
sure.
Let's
answer a phone call.
We'll take a phone call. And who do we have this morning? Good morning, caller.
Good morning, Jeff. Good morning, Joe. This is Linda Spalding.
Good morning, Linda.
Good morning.
It's so great to see you on the show and hear about all these specialties in the wine.
Thank you, Linda.
And I really enjoy being able to participate with your expertise in this particular area. I wanted to mention that you mentioned the wine that was made in Aborigino, Spain, to accompany fish.
Yes, of course. What would you like to know about?
Would you say it again?
Sure. It's called Albarino.
Albarino. Okay.
Yeah, and that's it.
And it's made in Spain. Is it made in where, Spain?
It's made in northwestern Spain. Rías Baixas is the growing region, in the general proximity of Galicia, which is it's a seaside area. It's very high up. You can get some Albarinos down in Portugal as well, but it's normally grown in that region of Spain. And Linda, that's Albarin with a tilde O, Albarino.
I see.
And I know that you've been to all 6 of the Wine Pairings at Andriat shows, and we used this one when we did a European pairing, and I remember you liked it a lot. So if you ever have any more questions, I could certainly tell you where to get it and what to pair it with.
Oh, well, thank you. Well, I understand that Harvey's Bristol Cream is manufactured in Juarez, Spain. It used to be. And you can also get the very same wine that's prepared there for a more economical price. And people pay for the label of Harvey's Bristol Cream. Would you care to comment on that? Is that still true?
Yeah, I think a lot of people do pay for a label because it's a trusted label. And when you're in a wine store and you're surrounded by thousands of bottles of wine, generally what you want to do is you want to find a label that you're comfortable with, that you're confident in, that you know over the test of time has been really good. Examples of this would also be Kendall Jackson, Kim Crawford. These wines where it might not be the one that blows your mind, but at least you know it's going to be a great bottle of wine. And that's a testament to the wine producers of those different labels to really do a great job year over year. And again, wine generally is priced on production. So no wine, Joe Bastianich, a wine guru in America, he partnered up with Mario Batali, a lot of restaurants, and he has Italy in New York City. His own winery in Italy now. He said that no wine is more than $5 to create or to produce in a mass production setting. So generally you are paying for the cost of production on smaller vineyards and so on. But to answer your question, yes, people still buy by the label, and I think that that's why they do it, for the comfortable buying power.
I see. Well, thank you.
Of course.
Well, I'd also like to mention that we do have services with the Chautauqua County Office for the Aging, and I'm calling in particular about the Senior Employment Program and also our computer training. And the number is on the screen, 753-4471. So have a great weekend.
Linda, you know that wine also helps with aging. So I'm glad you called in with that number, because there's a lot of antioxidants in the wine that are proven to slow down the effects of aging. So perhaps what you're talking about, what we're talking about, goes hand in hand.
Yes, it's supposed to be very good for you, especially if you do it in moderation with like a meal, like dinner.
Absolutely.
And I guess in some European countries like France, it cuts down their cholesterol and keeps them trim.
Definitely, and there's stress.
Mm-hmm. I told my doctor that I have a glass of red wine with my dinner, and he said, "Good."
Absolutely. It's definitely
very good for you.
I agree. Mm-hmm. Thanks again, Linda.
Well, thank you. Have a great weekend.
You too.
Thank you, Linda.
Okay. Bye-bye.
So,
open this up while you chat about the next topic.
What's the process for tasting?
Well, it has a couple of different components. Let me just open this up real quick. And the first, you certainly want to look, it's called, you use your sight, right? So you want to look at the wine, you want to analyze it with your eyes first. A lot of things can be, stand up to pour this. A lot of things can be, determined from the sight of the wine, for how it looks. And it's nice that you have a white piece of paper in front of you to analyze this wine. It's always better to look at the wine over something very bright colored. This is my favorite wine. Look at the color on this guy.
Yeah, I was noticing it's not a real deep red. It's kind of a more of a burgundy, you know, a little bit lighter.
Absolutely. So if you want to take the wine and you just want to hold it over your glass, or hold it over your paper like this. So if you could see from home here, you want to hold the wine in the glass sideways over a white piece of paper or something that's white. If I can, like this. So you can actually see the colors coming through. We can tell from red wines are, in particular, certain grape varietals have different colors. So a Cabernet would be a really deep purple. As you can see, this one's more of a ruby, a little garnet maybe. And that's very indicative of the grape varietal Sangiovese and also Nebbiolo. As white wine, or as red wine gets older, it lightens up in color because the color particulate actually falls out. And it's called that extraction. And then a white wine will go from a kind of a clear day bright into a more of a yellow color as it ages. So white wine gains color and red wine loses color. So it's kind of cool that direction. But so now we've noticed that, and of course you could swirl it around and you could see the different things in this glass. You could see the viscosity. You could see of course the legs, as they call it, running on the side of the glass, and what that means. It generally is indicative of
Oh, these little, it looks like streamers running down the side of your glass.
That's exactly right. That'll tell you a lot about the alcohol content of the wine and also what kind of climate it was grown in. But then really the most important step in wine tasting, believe it or not, is the next step. It's going to be the nose. And the reason why that is because you think always tasting, but you only have 5, arguably 6 sensations on your tongue to taste with. We have hundreds of thousands of little memory factories in your brain that remember different scents. So you can actually get so much more out of the smell of a wine when analyzing a wine.
I've been smelling it. Just
it's pretty strong, right?
Yeah, it's pretty strong, but it's not overpowering.
Not at all.
And
not at all.
It's a little sweet. It's kind of got that. I don't know.
It's good. That's the.
I'm just sitting here babbling.
No, that's good. That's the beauty about wine is wine is all in who it's in front of. If somebody says what constitutes a great wine, and all I tell them is, do you like it? If you like it, it's a great wine. Also, one of my other rules of thumb is you could have a great wine in the wrong company and it'll taste awful, and you can have an okay wine in great company and be the best wine you've ever had. And so a lot of different things go into the experience of drinking wine. But this one in particular, I think that what you're getting here is the fruit up front. So definitely have that cherry we talked about, and also a little bit of leather there. So if you imagine it sounds funny, but like a leather belt or like something like that, or like a leather strap, and
saddle leather,
like a saddle leather. And isn't that indicative though of that region in Tuscany where there's horses everywhere, and it's a farmland, and it's pretty cool.
You're actually painting a pretty good picture. I've seen pictures. There's been some famous artistry work from the Tuscany region and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
Really show the farming and all that kind of stuff. And this is what's coming into my mind is all this.
Yeah.
All this background.
That's what it is. And another thing with wine and food pairing is generally choose a wine or a food that's from the same region that wine is grown, because they go hand in hand. In Tuscany, you walk into when I've been there in the past, and I'm going again next month, if you walk into like a little farm or an agriturismo or something like this, you will see cured meats hanging from the ceiling, and cheeses and grapes and all these things. And that's exactly what goes with this wine, is like a charcuterie board, or a nice powerful cheese.
So basically, you don't want to serve European food and American wines.
You could, but you generally want to keep it in the same region. I know one of the most famous pairings for Sangiovese in this form is they call it bistecca florentina. Florence is a city in Tuscany, and bistecca means steak in Italian, and it's just a really thick piece of steak that's just charred on the outside, and it's almost like a black and blue steak, so it's kind of rare in the middle. And they season it with rosemary, and olive oil is grown from the trees just outside the farm, and it just goes so well with this. And this particular grape is the same grape they make Chianti and Chianti Classico with, in its unhybrided form. Just the way they make it in this little small area of Montalcino within the smaller area of Tuscany in the giant country of Italy, it's just, I think, the best expression of Sangiovese there is, and it happens to be my favorite wine. So looks like you're your taste buds are starting to water, so you better give it a taste. It's never too early to drink wine, Jeff.
I know. I know there's a few people out there that would agree with you. Some of my friends that I follow on Facebook and stuff like that are like, I'm all about wine.
Absolutely,
So
absolutely.
it's like
I saw a thing on online the other day. It was actually yesterday because everybody loves Friday, and they said, you know what rhymes with Friday? Wine. So, there's never a bad day to drink it.
kind of a dry wine.
Definitely dry. And when tasting wine, something you could take away. When tasting wine, actually take a sip. When you breathe in, if you get there's almost that Listerine feel, right? When you breathe the air in, it's kind of a cooler feel, like you almost chewed on a piece of like mint gum. The stronger that is, the higher the alcohol is in the wine. So when you're analyzing it in a blind taste setting, if I were to breathe in, that's a high alcohol wine. I know it's 14.8, 15.2, somewhere in there, and that would help me discern where this wine came from. The salivation afterwards, when you're like that long kind of, it creates saliva in your mouth. That's the acid or the acidic elements of the wine. And then in the cheeks, a little bit dry there, that's the tannins. The tannins come from a couple of different things. The stems and the seeds when it's pressed, the oak of the barrel that the wine's in as it ferments, and also, funny enough, there's a third tannin. It's a combination of the two. It creates its own little thing. So that's the kind of dryness in your cheek you get is the tannin. So this wine certainly sat on some oak for quite some time, as you can tell by your cheeks. This wine I can drink all by itself because I love it. I would recommend it for an entry-level drinker to eat it with a steak that's charred on the outside with rosemary and olive oil and garlic. But this is, I think, one of the best wines in the entire world for me personally. But for you, it might be, for example, for my girlfriend, it's a Moscato.
I got to try this one more time.
Please do. There's a whole other bottle here, so. That's tart cherry. If you think of like a cherry pie, I kind of get some similar things. Not in the baked cherry sense, but like before the cherry becomes sweet. But it's
kind of halfway between green and ripe.
Exactly right, and that's why you have that tart cherry. So almost like a bitter phenolic sense, but it's certainly meant to be that way.
Yeah, this really makes my jaw want to crack. It just seems. It's just a really nice flavored dry wine.
That's right. And because of that, because of the high alcohol, because of the tannic elements, it's going to be one of the best wines to pair robustly flavored foods with. And that's a beautiful relationship this wine has. So it's strong enough to hold up to a robust food, and it won't be overpowered. So.
Okay. What is different between red and whites? And maybe you could tell us how long it takes for a vineyard to grow. Is there a difference? What's the difference between a red wine and a white wine? Let's start there.
Well, there's quite a lot of differences. That there's certain differences that white wine could have a red skin. It just simply means that they took the skin off before they pressed it, so it's now white juice.
Oh, okay.
In fact, if you take the skin off a red wine, like a Cabernet or a Malbec, you took the skin off, it would be white as well, but they press it with the skins. So the immediate difference is the skins.
Okay.
Of course, white wine is going to be generally a crisper, easier to drink summer kind of wine, and red wine is going to be more robust. Definitely your winter wine, is a lot of people will call it. So, yeah.
Okay, we've got maybe like a half a minute left here. Is there anything you want to say in conclusion?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I just want to thank you all again for having me here. I want to encourage you to come see me at Movement Country Club, where I'm the club manager and sommelier. We're developing a great program in the Jamestown area. I want to thank Senator Kathy Young for just being appointed to the chairwoman of the Senate Finance Committee, and she'll be at Robert H. Jackson Center in a couple of weeks. But when it comes to drinking wine, just remember to drink in great company. Drink with your friends and just have a good time with it.
Yes.
So thanks again.
All right, thank you.
Absolutely.
I guess that about wraps things up. This has been Chautauqua Sunrise. I'm Jeff Zook. So Randy Bird will host next week while Doc is still on vacation. Have a great afternoon. Sit back, enjoy a glass of wine, maybe two, maybe a full bottle. I don't know, but